Oh, we're live. Everybody, we're back. I'm somewhere in the universe. I'm Jason,
And I'm Dan. Wow,
episode
all of a sudden
61.
I got like lower, I got further away with this thing all of a sudden. Good thing I'm not in technology.
Oh god, and you're on a Windows system and it updated and rebooted right when we wanted to start.
That was great. Because I'm like, I don't give myself a choice. When there's an update and I got to come on and it's like, all right, you're back, reboot.
Yeah, well, it's one of those things like I completely agree with it as a policy operationally that look, man, when there's updates, just process them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because what do people do, of course, including us? I know I did in the past. Fuck it. I got better things to do. Put it off.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and so it wouldn't have been a big deal until I came, right. I turned the monitor on and it's like, I make it to where you can't do anything else other than basically accept yes for reboot. And it did. So.
Hey, but at least you're patched.
Always. Because I haven't yet quite got the green screen working properly on the Mac the way I want it. So this is just some of the things that, are irritating to me. Back in the day, Mac was like simple. Bam, done. What happened? Now all of a sudden, I mean, it took me, I don't know, when I first started putting up this green screen, I don't know, less than 60 seconds to install the application. And, oh, yeah, I want this particular green screen.
I mean, for me, it's gotten to the point where Ubuntu off a fresh install is more usable out of the box than Mac OS.
Oh.
And it's horrible because I don't know what the hell's going on at Apple, but it seems to me that obviously they have teams dedicated to devices. I mean, that's a natural segmentation within a company, right? Yeah, but it seems like they don't really intermingle because the devices have gotten less interoperable over time. Like to me, iCloud is completely unusable to sync anything meaningful between devices.
But you know what's not? Dropbox, Google Drive,
fucking OneDrive.
I've got OneDrive working on my Pixel book for work. That's OneDrive for business.
Man, this isn't what I wanted to talk about today, but fuck it, we're in it, and it's technology related, so let's go. From time to time, we both experiment, and for some time now,
some of us with other things other than technology.
Yeah, just trying to maximize productivity, right? As I float around the universe,
because I was trying to convince Death Star to do TDCS, and he's like, "What?" I'm like, "Dude, DARPA's doing this stuff." Because he's like, he doesn't want to do hypnosis for like trying to stop smoking. And I'm like, dude, there's a whole montage. So for TDCS, transcranial direct current stimulation, a bit really big in the e-gamer world, and DARPA used it to train drone pilots and snipers really quickly. I did it live, experimental myself, kind of like, except it was more productive than that movie, The Fly, with what was it, Jeff Goldblum?
That was the remake. The original was with Vincent Price.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So, I experimented on myself and, passed 5 certifications in 6 weeks. A lot of mundane text that I never want to have to read again. Trying convincing him to do this stuff. And he's like, no, I can't do this. No, I can't do this. And I'm like, all right, well,
Well, I mean, okay. He could go to Canada and do some ibogaine or something. I mean, no, and I'm not joking, man. From what I've read in the science, it's like done. A DMT trip. Now that I'm in the universe, if you can get your hands on it, 1 10-minute trip and you're done. You'll never smoke again.
Well, this is what's funny about these things. So, you take a look at there was an advertisement on TV the other day because I was watching because I like watching The Big Bang Theory. I mean, I think it's funny. But so even still watching it online, streaming it, you got to watch the commercials in between. It's not that many commercials, but still some. There was one for a drug that help you stop smoking, and the side effects would be if I was smoking, I would just keep smoking.
Oh, was that Chantrix?
What's that?
Chantrix?
I have no idea. I don't even remember the name of it. But it was basically you might have suicidal thoughts. You're gonna be depressed. I'm like, I'll just keep smoking then. I mean, George,
they're horrible.
100. So
yeah, back in the day when I smoked, I'd done Wellbutrin, which is not what you're talking about.
Right.
But that worked fairly well, and then for a while, and then I smoked again, and then I tried Chantrix, which is the real powerful one. And I'll never forget this, man. I was sitting in my office, and I was in the 3rd floor or the 2nd floor. But anyway, I had a window facing out like the back of the building, overlooking a freeway. And I was sitting there looking out the window, and I just started to think to myself, I wonder what would happen if I went on that bridge and jumped on the freeway. So it was like it's called an ideation. Like I didn't want to do it. I wasn't going to go do it. I didn't feel depressed or anything like that. I was just wondering, like, I wonder if that's a way out of this. It was bizarre. I stopped instantly, man. Fuck that. Yeah, it's horrible. But anyway, so I've deliberately stopped teaching undergrad classes that require me to do screen shares through Adobe Connect, just so after my move here in another week, I'm just moving over to Linux entirely. And then Adobe Connect works fine until you have to screen share, and then fucking Adobe doesn't make that plugin anymore. But
so what if you did? I mean, are you able to still do it with the thick client?
No.
Really? I mean, I'm not that I want to go through all the pain of doing like Wine or something like that.
It doesn't work. I tried that
really?
Too. Yeah, sure. It's
if I had to do a screen share at that point, I would just load up VMware Workstation for the moment, do my share, and poof, done.
Well, like I'm entirely happy with Windows 10 and the Linux subsystem in it. It works great. If I ever wanted to teach Unix again, it's better than running a VM, man. I mean, and it's Ubuntu. So like I'm teaching a C programming class now, and because we're dealing with sockets, network sockets, it's better to teach that in Unix, and I can compile the code no problem in that subsystem. I mean, it works great. I'm just getting tired of some of the other stuff with the apps in Windows. That's really my problem now. I mean, operating systems have become a commodity. It's the application user space that I think is where all the innovation is now.
Yeah, I'm wondering how. I mean, I know this is like always. We always get way off topic with what we want to talk about, but I wonder how much market share and how quickly Microsoft's Linux version is going to get.
Well, and what was this shit I read the other day? I didn't check into it. That like the Windows team is done. Like there's no more Windows team.
That's what it seems like. I mean, I've been reading some different things about that. I think they're, at least from a server side, they're going all in with Azure.
Yeah,
and it's basically their own Linux variant, from what I understand. I mean, I haven't done a lot of research on there, so anyone can fact check me on that. But by my cursory review of it, that Azure was their version of Linux. They've productized it themselves first, and now they're putting out the, we'll say, user experience, or if they wanted to start doing it, they can. And now it's just going to be like, any other desktop experience, like Ubuntu or not, Linux in general has, with whether or not you want, Cinnamon or whatever desktop experience. That's what Microsoft's going to be. They're just going going that route. I mean, that's what it looks like.
Well, an operating system itself, in the traditional way, right? Like I buy a computer, whether I build it myself from parts or I buy one pre-built, and you have this license that's attached to a conglomeration of utilities and software, which we call an operating system. And what that meant and the functionality it gave you is so static now. I mean, what else is an operating system as a piece of software going to do for us? Everything's in the application space, and predominantly I would argue that the application space doesn't even exist in the OS stack. It's all cloud-based now.
Well, right. I mean, and this all comes from mobile. They're all just little mini web apps.
Mm-hmm.
So why not? Why not build an operating system that's going to take care of that functionality? I mean, think about how much how much easier it is for patching the user environment now.
Right. Yeah, because there's less surface area, right?
Yep.
I mean, right. Just boot me enough of a kernel to connect to Azure or AWS or whatever my private cloud environment is. Like Citrix. Whatever I want to create locally that is cloud-like or cloud-based or whatever you want to call it, and just let me go from there, man. I mean, why not? That seems to be what it's doing anyway.
I think it's much better. We always talk about controlling the user environment, right? That's what I think. That is what Steve Jobs, I think, did really well. And Apple is starting to lose that, and Microsoft is starting to pick it back up.
Well, and it seems like they're going balls deep on this new AI platform.
Microsoft or Apple?
Microsoft. Oh, Apple ain't doing shit. Dude, I got for the grant, the brain machine interface grant, we got a bunch of virtual assistants. So I got like a bunch of Alexas, a bunch of Google Homes. I got to be careful saying that because the thing's going to turn on. Dude, how badass is that? I know you have one, right?
Yeah. Speaking of that, I met this lady at this conference I was speaking at this past week. And she's a smaller VC, we'll say, probably some angel funding and doing some things, but heavy into like IP research and is doing some things that I want to put you in touch with, because I think with what you got going on at the university research wise, and I was just explaining how quickly we were able to push out some IP at our last company, might be a win-win for the two of you.
Yeah, sure, man. This is a good segue into our real topic.
Yeah.
How do you figure out not what you want to be, because I presuppose that we know that given where we're at in our careers and our age, right? But how do you become that being, capital B? You know what I mean? And I've known you for a while, and so I found it very interesting to watch you transition through these roles and ultimately reach this conclusion. I'm going to call it recently, let's say within the last year or two, that you want to be a CEO. And I find that not like I don't disagree with it. I think you'd be a great CEO. In fact, I think you are a CEO already in some ways. But I just find it curious. How did you figure out that that's what you wanted to be as a being? You know what I mean?
Several years ago, I never thought I would even be thinking that along those lines, right? I was going to stay in that startup space, just wanting to be an innovator, technologist, and move forward. But when we talk about that startup space, is it easier to win the lottery than it is for that startup to actually go and make a big difference? I'd say, yeah. So then even if you do make it in that startup space, it's not like you went and became the major product overnight, and more than likely your goal is not to necessarily go IPO, but to sell to the bigger company, and that bigger company is the one that winds up having the responsibility. So let's take Wells Fargo as an example for the moment. You'll never convince me the CEO didn't know what was going on with the fraudulent activity of opening up other accounts for people. And if you could convince me, then I would say the CEO was negligent. Regardless, it's his fault.
Right. I mean, either he tacitly approved it or he was willfully ignorant of what his subordinates were doing, right?
Right. And let's say that's not even, to me, as bad as Equifax. All right. Equifax is probably the worst example, because who has to sign off when you own stock in the company you work for? It's got to be signed off on at a minimum by the CFO.
Right.
Look at how many millions of dollars some of the people made at Equifax because they knew the breach had occurred, and they allowed that stock transaction to occur. And we have this debate, maybe not so much now, but we still hear it. The difference, and this is a pet peeve of mine, the difference between ethics and morals. People always say that's bad ethics. There's no such thing as bad ethics. There's no such thing as good ethics, because I can go along this particular, we'll say philosophy and ethics that says as long as it benefited me, it was perfectly ethical. Now, that's not morally correct in some instances. So the CFO, the CEO had to sign off on it in some way, shape, or form. It was signed off on that stock transaction. And I would like to believe, and I think a lot of people probably believe this, they say they want to become a part of the system in order to be able to change it, then they just become a part of it. And then they don't ever change it. They succumb to it. But I believe my personality goes against that aspect. I don't believe I will become a part of the system. I truly believe I go and become a part of the system, and I'm not changeable. I change others.
Sure.
And it doesn't matter which environment I've gone in. I go in there, and I believe that my personality is strong enough that I'm not going to conform to their culture. but their culture will conform to me.
Well, right, and to some degree, that is in essence creating a system within a system, and that inner system becomes so powerful that it consumes the outer older system, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And so, if an organization rots from the head down like a fish, then, and I believe, whether or not I go and do this at a Fortune 500, who knows? Maybe I decide that I'm going to go do my own business at some point, and I do. I am going to do it, but it's not really necessarily technology directly. But every company is technology based nowadays. And I believe that a trend that is going to start to occur is that CIOs are going to start becoming the next CEOs, because they are going to understand more and more about business and how technology is going to drive business. And that your CFOs are not going to be the ones. Your chief operating officers, unless they transition from the CIO to COO, are not going to be the CEOs. And I just believe that people that are putting themselves in that position, which is why I'm going to play where the puck is going to be, not where it currently is, and get my MBA to get that business acumen, to become more business, at least have the business acumen, and then the technology background puts me in a position to where when that trend starts, I'm in a prime candidate to be one of those, to put myself in a position to be CEO.
What's interesting, because like I think when you and I were like Danny's age, for instance, right, or Ben's age, graduating high school, getting ready to go into undergrad, you had business and you had technology, and they were in no way in shape or form fused unless you were a business that was creating technology, right?
Sure.
Like Netscape, right, or AOL, in that sense. And even just in a couple decades, there's this like hyper convergence between those two, where I don't think for much longer they're going to be separable in any way, shape, or form. And so to your point, I think you can see this, what you're trying to do with the MBA, I can see, like, for instance, at Capital, they're trying to do with reshifting these degrees to align with what culture is asking for, which is converging business and technology, where it's not two separate things. It's not like you're getting a dual degree. It's like something else. I don't even, tech biz. I don't know what the fuck to call it, but it's something new.
Yeah, sure. And that's just kind of what I'm doing. I don't know if I'll get to that point to where I become the CEO, but this is, I believe that, so no different than people say, oh my gosh, why would you go from CISO to CTO to CIO? Because a CISO has no power. Okay, unless you're making a security product, then maybe we could argue, but really you have no power. You're constantly the person at the end of the table waiting for some scraps, waiting for the technology folks to invite you to the dance to say, hey, take a look at our product, tell me if it's secure or not, after it's already been built. I have more influence as a CTO, as a CIO, to make sure security is in there from the beginning, from cradle to grave. So now how much more influence do I have over technology from the chief operating officer and then the CEO?
Right, because the business culture never made the transition to allow a CISO or that type of role to actually create technical requirements from business requirements. That's always stayed with the CIO.
Right. And why? And the big reason why I see that, when I take a look at the curriculums that are being taught in cybersecurity, they don't know networking. They don't know systems design. There's no development process. They learn cybersecurity. They learn how to use Metasploit. They learn how to use vulnerability management. They get a programming or two class, but you also have all the other things they have to take. Your science, your general studies topics, your social sciences, math, English, because they have to have all those components for a degree. So there's not so much room for them to learn system design.
Well, and somewhere it got perverted in a way where pen testing became like the ultimate end goal. And so I laugh, man. I laugh my ass off, because everybody wants to be on a red team in some way. And right, what that means in terms of pen testing, you can separate those two. That's a different argument.
They're a bunch of jobbers.
Yeah, well, I agree, because, and it's interesting because, year after year, we get told that there's a workforce shortage, and yet academia has evolved to a point within this vertical of education, cybersecurity, where what they produce immediately eats itself, because all they produce are people that want to be pen testers or red teamers. And that's not what the workforce needs. I mean, why? Because it's absolutely worthless. That's why.
I'm telling you right now, You give me someone computer science background, I can make you a great cybersecurity person.
Fuck it, man. Give me a philosopher. Give me an English lit major, somebody that can think logically and you know what I mean? And I can develop their tech skills as long as they're passionate.
If that's what you want. I mean, that's a little bit, I think that's a little bit more difficult to find someone that is in a philosophy major in undergrad or more math that they so want to make that transition to technology.
I agree.
I mean, it happens. I mean, you did, right? A lot of them, there are a bunch that can. I guess my point is that if you're the cybersecurity major, I really can't do much with you. Throw you in a sock, you're not going to be able to help with the solution. You're not going to understand necessarily the end-to-end unless you chose to go down that path on your own. But coming right out of college, that computer science person knows end-to-end. And I believe at that point, I can teach them the security component. But I can't go the cybersecurity component and then teach them 4 years of end-to-end, and it's the same thing. Because that person, computer science people, this is what I've noticed. They can consume data, technical data, a large amount of it. They know how to document it, and they can produce a result in a repeatable fashion than someone that is doing a cybersecurity curriculum.
Well, and I think I agree, and I think this is actually a shortcoming of a lot of programs originally contextualizing cybersecurity in the business colleges instead of in the engineering colleges.
Yeah, 100%, because engineering disciplines know how to do this.
Yeah. Well, right, because engineering principles are engineering principles.
Yep. And so that's how I started going. I started taking a look at the amount of problems that are happening in industry. And I just started going, you know what? If I was CEO, as soon as I see some impropriety in that case, I will treat, even if let's say for whatever reason, I became the CEO of Walmart, Fortune 1. I would treat even Walmart as if it was a startup company, and I will fire fast and, so to speak, hire slow. Because you want the right fit. And if you are not doing the right thing the right way, I just don't want you a part of my team. I would rather you thought you did everything the right way and fail, because that's at least something we can correct. But come on, the people selling stock at Equifax, knowing that the breach disclosure was going to happen? Nope. As much as I'm not a fan of Stamos over at Facebook, I will at least say two things that I at least respect. He left Yahoo because they wouldn't do things from a cybersecurity perspective the right thing the right way. Facebook started doing the exact same thing, and he fought the best he could. And this is why a CISO has no power. They didn't listen to him because he doesn't have the political clout. But I respect the man for standing by his principles and going, you know what? Then I'm not going to be in this position. I think some of the other things he says are kind of, I don't agree with. But I respect the man for that.
Yeah, I mean, we can disagree on our mode of operation as long as we agree on what the end game should be.
Yeah. Now with that, if I was the CEO, I'd be looking for, one, the CISO in my organization will always report to the CIO, but I will give them an independent reporting structure, as well, to where they're going to be the ones having to present the business risk side to the board and myself. But to get things done, still CIO. I believe that's the right paradigm. But he would be a CISO that I would still want to work for me, because if he's saying something, I'm going to take that into account. It's only one piece of the pie. So that was the big reason as to why I am tired of these big companies in this way, not really giving enough credence to technology when everything is technology today. When I hear people say, oh, well, you can't do this without the sales. You also can't do it without technology. How are you going to make that sale if that cell phone didn't work?
Yeah, right. I mean, how are you recording your sales? I mean, how are you getting your commission?
All right. It is now symbiotic. And yeah, I don't want to be a salesperson either. I respect, a good account manager, And I've met and come across a lot of really good ones because they know how to network. They're not always in it for the sale, but they're going, hey, you know what? You've got a problem. I got a buddy over at company XYZ. Let me put you in touch there. It's about the network. And account managers are brilliant when they're good at putting people together to solve a problem. And then if they're hoping to get commission either today or tomorrow, they're going to get that commission.
And I think it's the role of a good CIO to figure out how to use the technology to make their job not only easier, but also optimize it.
You got it. Absolutely. And so I just keep going up that progress. I mean, if I'm going to be the CIO, why can't I be the chief operating officer? If I can be the chief operating officer, why couldn't I be CEO? And if I could be CEO, why couldn't I be the chairman of the board of several companies?
Right. That's an interesting progression.
Why put your limit? And then if I could be the chairman of a bunch of different companies, why too couldn't I be the president of the United States?
See, it's a logical progression, isn't it?
You, Trump.
The only thing you're missing is reality TV star, and I guess to some degree we are because we have this show.
2032. You've heard it here first. See, while you're just looking to be governor of Carolina, I'm looking to be the supreme emperor of the universe.
That's admirable, man. That's admirable.
Well, this is the part of like, why put a limit on what you want to do?
Right.
That's a big reason. That's probably the biggest reason. Why not? I might take the shot and miss.
Yeah, I would argue that the only thing you should limit are your self-excuses as to why you can't be.
Yeah.
I mean, right? If you're going to put a cap on something, put the cap on that bullshit.
The only thing I'm going to put a cap on is, I will say how many children I want to have. That's about it. Just because college is expensive.
Oh, Jesus, yeah.
Now, if I become the CEO of Walmart, then maybe I'll have another couple hundred children. I don't know.
I'll be like Genghis Khan. There's your emperor.
I would have the money for it then. Money wouldn't be the issue.
Empires are expensive to build, man. Let's not get it twisted.
Yeah. So, I'm 42 years old. I got a long way to go. Yeah. So why not? That's the big difference. And I think that's what the advice I would give to anyone out there. When you say, hey, I just want to be the director. Really? Why couldn't you be the senior director? Why couldn't you be the vice president? Why couldn't you be the senior vice president? Why couldn't you be an EVP? Why couldn't you be the CIO, CTO, CISO, CEO, chief operating officer? If you want to be in the finance side, why shouldn't your end game not be the CEO? There's plenty of CFOs that move over to CEO. Why are you limiting yourself? I just can't fathom that. I mean, it was said to me the other day, hey, Dan, you're fearless. That's not true. I feel plenty of fear, but I'm not going to run from it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, put it behind you so that you run towards your goal. Don't let the fear stop you. You know what I mean? From going forward. Exactly. Well, it's interesting too, the way people take sometimes, I got into this conversation last week with a group of faculty, and it became clear to me that they thought I was telling them as individuals something. It doesn't matter what. And I kept trying to express to them, no, I'm not talking about you as an individual. I'm talking about us as a faculty. And if we're in this situation as a university, then us as a faculty shouldn't wait on this other group to do something. If they're not doing it, that means for some reason, and it's probably multiple reasons, they're not able to do what we need. So why don't we do it? And I wasn't saying to these people, you do it as an individual, as in I'm telling you what to do. I'm saying we as a group should come together and compensate for that other group is weak if we can be strong. If we can be strong. I don't know that we can, but why isn't that our attitude instead of saying, well, that's that other group's problem? Because if we all fail, if that group fails and continues to fail, we're all equally screwed.
There's when you can put two brains together in a common goal, you've got a lot better of an opportunity than if it was just one.
That's right.
But 3, it's better than 2, 4, so on and so forth. Why not? I mean, that's what collaboration's for. And that's probably the part where people, they mistake me for being a feminist or anything along those lines. I'm a humanist. In business, I honestly do not see the difference between male, female, your ethnicity, your sexual orientation. I don't care. I want a group of people that come from different backgrounds because I believe they're going to bring something different and unique to the table. I'm not looking for a bunch of yes people. And that also means that I'm not necessarily looking for it from the same geographical location, as well as, hey, you know what? If you happen to have a sexual orientation of whatever, either a good person or you're not, as far as I'm concerned. You can either help with the end goal or you can't. But I'm not going to go hire someone just because it provides a diversity aspect to my environment if you don't have the background to be able to solve the business problem. And that's funny enough. My sociology teacher in my undergrad, African-American guy, the amount of booze he got basically from the undergrad class, because he's like, hey, look, EEOE goes against capitalism. You want the best for that. And we all, and his background, his mom, he was a single mom. His father wasn't around, grew up in Baltimore City, but his mom made sure they were all in the library. Now, of course, it's a little bit different now, because at least if you go to the library, you have a computer. But his mom made sure that that him and his brothers were not going to live in Baltimore City. And I slightly disagree. I believe that there is a reason for EEOE, because for the most part, you want to give someone an opportunity to be invited to the dance, and then let's see what happens. But they had a background. EEOE does not mean, hey, let's go and bring someone in that has no experience, no training, no background in the particular business problem. That's not what that means. Same thing with NFL with the Rooney Rule. It doesn't mean you give someone, a minority candidate, just an interview for a head coaching job if they've never been coaching before. So,
right.
It's the same thing. And I don't do diversity for diversity's sake. I look for something unique that's going to bring a difference to the team I'm implementing.
Right. Yeah. I mean, well, because you want a breadth of counsel. I don't want somebody for the sake of what that person physically or even mentally represents. I mean, look, to me, it's this simple. If my job requires somebody to add 2 and 2 and get 4, I'm not taking somebody that can add 2 and 2 and get 5, because I'm not looking for that. You know what I mean? And I don't really care where you come from. And to me, this is the beauty of technology, especially, both of us have done a healthy amount of working remote. That's the beauty of it. Now you have the potential to pull from an international, worldwide pool of talent. So in my experience, I mean, the grant I'm working on, for instance, right? I mean, the 2 principal investigators, myself and one of my colleagues, we come from very different backgrounds, and I'm a male and she's a female, and we come from completely different geographic locations around the world. And just organically, the students that work for us, we have 3, are all different. 2 guys, 1 girl. They're all different ethnic backgrounds, different cultural backgrounds. It's just organic if you're using the technology to pull the best from the complete available pool of candidates.
Right. I mean, look at the last couple I had. I had this guy from Southern California that was a pagan running research, to someone that was on the defensive side trying to build out compliance that came from Princeton. So it was, you could not have 2 different people in the room. In case I was on my co-host over here, the ninja was the pagan guy. Still is, but you couldn't have more of a diverse group from those different extremes. Now, the challenge in that case, for those wondering at home, is that sometimes when you have that too many of those opposite ends of the spectrum, does not produce the results. So you have to be able to still create a diverse background that's going to produce results. When it is too far extreme, nothing gets accomplished.
No, because you get tribalism within itself.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean,
because even if you look across everybody that was on the team, we had enough in common that we could fit to a common goal with enough difference that we were able to collectively produce powerful results.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And that was kind of my role, was to make sure I put people in the proper place to succeed. And when things didn't look right, pivot.
Mm-hmm.
It's General Hal Moore, he was a big time general, was in what was the guy's name that played him? Mel Gibson played him in the last movie, when We Were Soldiers.
Yeah.
And he said, take every moment you basically possibly can in order to, and I'm paraphrasing, to plan. And if there's one more thing you can do to ensure success, do it. And if one more and one more and one more, you keep going until you no longer have enough time to plan and then just execute. And if something changes, pivot accordingly, because you've hopefully with your team have thought it through enough to where you understand the different things that may change in the midst of the battle that's going to cause you to do something, but you've already got a plan for that also. And I think that's one of the other things that when people ask, like, why am I going down that CEO path? Because I believe that's something that I do well.
I agree. Wow, that was interesting, man. That was actually a really in-depth look at the your inner gear works. It's interesting to watch this happen, man.
Well, I mean, we've known each other since 2010, right? And for a lot of those that don't know, we started developing a kinship when we hadn't even met in person yet, because this was all over. Not at that time, it wasn't Adobe Connect. It was the
Centra.
Other Centra, yeah. And then it was me, you, Tommy Cromer. I think that was it. That when we met for beer ahead of time. I don't even know whatever happened to Tommy, but ever since he graduated, I've never heard from him ever since. That dude was a little bit out there. He raised poison dart frogs.
And ghost peppers.
Yeah. Odd combination. There was some odd folks, still are some odd folks. But yeah, I had no idea. And I didn't really have any expectations of who I was meeting other than, hey, this person's making sense online. We think the same way. Great. So, wow, 8 years. It'll be 8 years this summer.
Yeah, in August, right?
Yeah. So, yeah, there's been quite a bit of a change, because back then I was working for McAfee.
Yeah, I was still at the restaurant company then.
Yeah. What the worst company I've ever worked for.
Me too.
I really cannot stand. They might be better now, but back then, it was really the people that I was working up for. Charles Ross, Mike Fay, who's now the chief operating officer at Symantec. Just no way I would ever work in a company where they will work for me or I will work for them.
Yeah, I don't know,
Any
man.
dude that tries telling me he's a rocket scientist and intentionally chooses to live in Antarctica for 6 months and wants to convince me that he's sane and understand. Sorry, I'm out. It's cold. It's cold in Antarctica.
Yes.
I get chills just thinking about being exposed to the summer there, which is only like, what, I don't know, -20 or something like that. It's cold.
Yes.
And he chose that over Hawaii.
I don't know, man. I don't know. I might choose it too, to be honest with you.
Well, yeah, no, you wouldn't. I don't think you could do it. After all the times you've lived in California, I don't think so. You like putting on a winter coat and boots when it gets to be like 50 degrees. I don't know how you're going to live in North Carolina. I don't know how you're going to do it. You're going to have to grow that big wizard beard out again.
I'm looking forward to it, man. I miss the cold. I miss a nice cold autumn. You know what I mean?
Yeah, at least it's still not where I'm at in South Bend. For now, I'm in South Bend. Who knows?
Right.
I'm always a free agent.
Chance favors the prepared mind.
Yeah, I tell people that work for me, and people get upset if they when people leave them. I'm like, I would be a hypocrite. Never turn down a business meeting. You never know.
Yeah. Well, it's like we started off with, you were saying you met this person. Dude, I'll talk to anybody about anything. I mean, if nothing else, maybe I'll meet somebody that has an interesting idea or can show me where my ideas are a little off or point me in a new direction. You know, it's just sharing space and time. I mean, why are we alive if not to do that?
Collaboration. You never know who you're going to meet. Like that lady, I don't even remember what her name is right now. Nicole. And, you know, at this conference, she's like, hey, I'm doing some stuff in research. I don't want to blow up what she's really researching on because I think it's interesting and she's got some IP work going around it. But I'm like, oh, I need to put you in touch with my buddy because there's some things I think you all are doing and what she's working on that, you know, could help. Especially with, you know, I'm like, look, you need IP cranked out. I'm sure that an arrangement could be made, even if it's not financially direct right now, on how to get some of that stuff out. I mean, there's always, you know, at a minimum, hey, names on patents and royalties associated with it could turn into dollars later. Who knows? I'll leave that up to you all.
Yeah, but, you know, you're right, though, man. I mean, money isn't always the way forward. Sometimes it's figuring out how to, like, I'll use this term loosely, co-market something. And like white papers are perfect for that because they're also great for students.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So, anyway. Yeah, I mean, that's just, you never know who you're going to come across. That's right. And I will repeat this because I'm still a little bit salty. The stuff that happened to RSA. Oh, when you're at an event, you never know who you're going to meet, and you should take this advice, which is not just mine. I've taken this from a very, very nice man, and he always said, "Never mistake my kindness for weakness. I am kind to everyone that I meet, but if you are not kind to me, my response will surely not be weak." Alphonse Capone.
That's right. Well, it's amazing, man. I mean, even I'll end with this because it's a good tie-in. So I was thinking about this story you told, right? And you know, I've been putting out these essays through the school, and it's a good exercise. And one of them is my privacy manifesto that I've been working on for a couple of years. And this dude from Fortinet on LinkedIn, so it's him, right? Makes some snarky comments, and it's not my post, it's the president of the university's post that he makes this on, right? And it's just being cunty to be cunty, right? And I'm not going to respond to it because I really don't check that shit anyway, and that's not the platform I'm going to use to respond to that stuff on. And so I'm thinking to myself, what's that?
It'll be Medium.
Or Tumblr. So I'm thinking to myself, does this guy think that I'm ever going to use Fortinet? Because I used to love Fortinet until this person acted this way. Because I'm thinking to myself, how are you acting this way with this tag a company that you're proud to be part of, and they're watching you do this and they approve of it? Because they're certainly not stopping you. I mean,
I never liked the Fortinet product. It explains a lot.
Yeah, well, I mean, look, if you're going to run around, and I've been watching this dude for a while now, and it seems to be his shtick. Maybe he does it instead of working. I don't know what he's up to, but he's just constantly making shitty comments on everybody's posts, unless it's a Fortinet product. And I'm thinking to myself, are you crazy? I'm ever going to use this again? Because I'm not just an academic. I happen to do work in industry sometimes, right?
Mm-hmm. I would never use Fortinet, never in a million years. And I've taken a look at the product. I think the product is garbage. They're like the 6th firewall in a 3 firewall race. Because I just can't seem to get, like, anyone that's going to go, if you have to buy a firewall today, like if you're in that still brick and mortar stuff, like I would be going with whatever can go in Amazon or Azure, right? And Amazon's firewall product's not that bad. But still, if you tell me, and I would never go with Checkpoint, but at least I can't argue that if you say, yeah, I'm throwing in a bunch of new Checkpoint firewalls. Yeah, okay. Palo Alto or Cisco, if it's not one of those 3, I mean, unless you're just doing it for your home office, where you might go with something like a Sonic Wall or WatchGuard, I just immediately turn off and go, you just don't know what you're doing.
Dude, I'm at a point, and you know, you and I worked on all this stuff for a long time, so I think you'll understand my point here.
Even though the best firewall ever was Secure Computing Sidewinder Firewall.
Yes, that's absolutely certain, man. That was the holy grail. If I don't have the money for a Checkpoint or a Cisco, then I'm just going to put in a PF Sense box.
Yeah, yeah, no doubt. Anything open source at that point, 100%.
Yep. And because essentially I'm building my own checkpoint in some ways, right?
Yeah.
And so anyway, my point is, you're right. You never look. I'm not saying you shouldn't speak the truth. You should absolutely speak the truth the way you say it. But to just look for ways to pull other people down that are trying to speak the truth as they see it, instead of confronting those points and just having a discussion. No, man, this is the exact problem you have when you don't speak the truth.
Yeah, it's like that dude Chris Murphy that kept responding to stuff to me on LinkedIn, and I'm going,
yeah.
And now that dude is like, hey, this is the most profound thing you've ever said, and I'm like, or in terms of being out there, and he starts like resharing it on LinkedIn constantly about the aspects of an indirect and a direct assertion of identity. Yeah, dude, that's been around for a long time. There's no such thing as a direct assertion of identity today, though he keeps saying there is. I'm like, dude, are you a cyborg that I didn't know about? Maybe some cyborg entity is working out. They know they have a constant stream of assertion of identity. I have no idea.
Well, we're never hiring them.
No.
I'll never use your products in either an academic lab that I set up or in a business that I'm part of.
I will take that back. I might still buy a Fortinet just so I can constantly find vulnerabilities and publish a new vulnerability on a daily basis.
Well, they had such a good idea in the beginning, man, with manufacturing their own dedicated ASICs.
Yeah.
But they just didn't innovate, and they tried to adopt the Cisco ASA subscription software model to unlock functionality on those ASICs.
But see, that wasn't even their own idea.
Right.
They stole that from NetScreen.
That's right.
Which Juniper bought.
Right.
So, they couldn't even be original about that, and then they made an inferior product. Anyway.
I don't know, man. I think that's the end of episode 61. That was a hell of a journey.
Yeah, be kind to everyone that you meet. You never know who they are.
Speak a tempered truth,
Hey, you make someone angry, and it gets all around the world very quickly. Just be kind.
Yeah. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with asking questions or debating, but just to be a dick and to make dickish comments. I mean, what future do you think you're going to have visited upon you? And not that I'm going to care, because I'm too busy off doing other things, but that's the kind of karma you invite, to put it in that context.
Yeah, and they don't know who else is watching.
That's right. Because I wouldn't want people like that working for me. Even if they weren't attacking me, why would I want somebody that acts that way with me?
No,
you represent the team I want.
You represent the company. Anyway, yeah. All right, man. Episode 61 in the bag.
That's a good one, man.
39 more episodes to 100.
We'll make it, man. I'm coming up with a plan.
I think we will. Maybe it's time to get TK back on.
I would love to, man. I haven't talked to that dude like live in a long time.
Yeah, we should get him on. Get a repeat of some of our guests.
I'd like to hear his point of view actually on this, man. Maybe we should set that up. Like, how did he figure out how to become, especially after his transition out of the Navy?
I told him. That's not what it was, but he would be a good CEO. I would work for TK in a minute.
Oh, I would too. I'm just curious on him as a human being, how he decided to be something. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I would say we could ask Death Star, but I haven't given him his opinion yet.
I would be curious in that too, because, well, you know why I'm interested. That's like having a hamster in a ball.
So this dude asked me the day if I think he's stupid, and I said, "What?" I said, "I wouldn't have hired you twice if that was the case." He's like, "Well, people talk," and I said, "Okay, dude, look back. Who's a person I go to and I ask to evaluate a product or questions on a product or something along those lines that I'm doing? Actions speak louder than what someone might be saying."
Well, and what does he mean by stupid? Like, do I think he has a low IQ, or do I think he does stupid shit?
I mean, both of those. Yes, he has a lower IQ than I would say what we do, and he does do stupid things, but that does not necessarily make one stupid.
Well, he's also a fucking kid, relatively speaking.
Yeah. So it's just funny, but I, curious as to why would people, they hear things, but then they see a different action. And it's like, why do you give credibility over one versus the other? You never know who's messing with you.
That's right.
Anyway,
there's so much irony in you saying that. Oh man, let's get these assholes back on here.
Yep, awesome. All right, folks.
All right, everybody, have a good weekend.
Peace.
Bye.